Hey, what's up? Welcome to another video here on Free Will Photos. Today, we're going to take a look at the masking properties and the new capabilities with masking. So you'll be a little bit more familiar when ON1 Photo RAW is released on October 13th, 2025. Now, if you pre-order Photo RAW 2026, you will get access to ON1 Photo RAW 2025. So this gives you essentially two versions of ON1 for the price of one. If you want to save some money, consider using the coupon code FREEWILL10. It is an affiliate coupon, but it's a win-win because you save money and I make a small commission from everyone who uses it. I greatly appreciate it. Now, let's go ahead and jump into the computer and take a look at the masking capabilities that we're going to have when Photo RAW 2026 is released. So here we are inside of ON1 Photo RAW 2026. This is still the pre-release version, and if anything changes from what I'm showcasing in this video, I will make an update. If you'd like to follow along, you can download this file in the description box below. Now, let's go ahead and get started with the editing. I've only applied some Bruins AI to this image, so I'm not going to go over that because this is really geared towards the masking capabilities and how to use them. So the first thing that I'm going to do is come over to local, and you'll notice that the options here to apply the mask or to apply an adjustment, they look different. And essentially you have to select or think about what it is that you want to select in your photo and then choose that masking type. Now, of course, if you hit the more option here, you get this pop-up. And if you just wanted to paint something in, you can hover over this brush. And then you have this mindset of add or subtract. Now, I'm going to recommend everyone thinks about using the additive mindset. How do I add something to the image or select something in the image? And that's essentially what this add option is. All right. Don't worry, it's going to make sense here in a little bit, I hope. But whatever I don't clarify in this video, please drop a question in the comment section and I will do my best to answer it in the comments or create a whole new video. But with that being said, what I want to do is select the background in this photo because I want to make the background darker. So I can just click the AI background button here, and that's selecting my background. So if I press the letter O, you'll notice that my background is painted red, and I'm using the red overlay just so that way I can see the image and the mask at the same time. Well, in previous versions of ON1, the red overlay used to show the areas that were not included in your adjustment or that would not receive the adjustment. But one of the new things in Photo RAW 2026 is you have the ability to choose how you want this red overlay to appear. So if I come over here to my masking properties, and if yours is collapsed, just click on masking. You may have a floating window there, and heck, you may even have it nested over on the left side of ON1 if that's what you choose to do. But either way, once you find your masking properties dialog box, come down to the bottom, and where it says show, you'll notice that I have mine set to affected. And what that tells me is anywhere that I see red, that's where my adjustment is going. For me, that makes perfect sense. And this is just my own way of processing how I'm applying an adjustment. But if I click this drop down, I can change it to non-affected. And this is essentially how ON1 used to work when you worked with the red overlay. But I personally like the option for affected. And if I'm not mistaken, I think this is the default now. So that's something to keep in mind if you're used to using the red overlay when working with ON1. Now, I do call this the red overlay, but you could actually change the color now. So if I click the little box there to the right, this little red box, and I get my color swatch here, I could change this color to whatever I want. Now, part of me is kind of, I guess, nostalgic. I like to use the color that I'm used to seeing, but that's a really cool added feature to the new masking properties here inside of ON1 2026. But not only can you change the color, you can change the opacity. So if I just want to look at essentially a red cutout of all of the areas that I'm going to be working on, I I know that there's use cases for doing stuff like this inside of Photoshop or Affinity Photo, but when I work with this stuff in On1, I typically leave my opacity low because I want to see the image underneath it so that way I know what I'm affecting, right? You may want to do something different, but the cool thing is you now have this option. And if the screen real estate becomes an issue for you, you can just click on overlay options and look at that. It collapses. Same thing with target mask and then the mask layers. So you have a lot of ability to get back some screen real estate by collapsing some of these windows. So that's also a new feature, or at least a helpful feature. I don't want to call it new, but it's helpful, especially since there are these multiple, I guess we'll call them buckets or containers. Don't know the official term. Should probably read the manual. Nonetheless, now that I have my background selected, I can do the additional thing, which is I want to apply a gradient. Now, I've already made a video showing how to do that. So I am going to essentially replicate that again, but I want to show you some new concepts of being able to do that. So I'm going to hover over mask layers, click the plus icon, and then I'm going to apply a gradient. Now, in this case, what I want to do is remove the gradient from the bottom of my image. So, or I'm sorry, remove the effect from the bottom of my image. So whenever I think remove, I need to think subtract, right? If you want to remove something from your mask, you want to subtract. So I'm going to come over here to gradient and I'm going to click subtract. Now, by default, it gets rid of the adjustment at the top of my image, and that's the opposite of what I want. So basic masking principles and behavior apply here. Instead of hitting invert, because that would be the initial thought, and I'll show you what happens with that here in a second, but instead of hitting invert, what I'm going to do is hover over this little circle. I'm just going to rotate that around. And now I'm getting the effect that I want. And I can just pull this up, down, do all that good stuff. All right. So after I rotate that around, you'll notice that I have the effect that I want and everything is good to go. Now, the next thing that I'll note really quickly is with local adjustments, we no longer get the default of -1. So I'm super grateful that that is gone. Now we get the opportunity to just have a blank slate and you apply whatever you want. Now, of course, if you want that -1, you can just click darken and there you go. You got that -1 look. All right. Now, that's not what this tutorial is about, so I'm just going to go ahead and reset that because I just want to show you the masking capabilities that are available to us, so that way you can get your creative looks out and into your photo. Now, of course, if you're finding value in this content, don't forget to smash the like button and subscribe if you are new. The next thing that we'll do, we'll just go ahead and expand our masking properties here, and I'm just going to reset this mask. So I'm going to go ahead and hit reset, and that gets rid of all of the masking properties, or I'm sorry, the masking selections. That's what we'll call them. The selections that I've made, right? Because I selected the background previously. Now let's say I want to work with the model. Okay. Well, I can just click subject, and I chose an image where the AI tools are going to be very sticky and work well because I want to showcase this and I want to show you how the masking tools work. So now that I have the model selected, let's say I want to make a gradient on her from the bottom up. Maybe I don't know why I would want to do that, but let's say I want to do that. Well, what I'm going to do, you don't want to come to more underneath local adjustments because guess what? That's going to add a new adjustment. Instead, what we want to do, because if you notice, I had added a new adjustment here. than what we were working on. What you want to do instead is come to the masking properties and then click the little plus icon right above mask layers, because now what ON1 does is it has this layer based system. If you're coming from a recent version of Lightroom, then you'll be familiar, at least in most part, how this system works, where you're adding new masking tools on top of each other. So that's essentially how this works. We're going to hit the plus icon, and then I'm just going to come down to the gradient. And then, of course, I want to subtract from the subject because I want to fade up, right? And so now look at how it's staying contained inside of my subject here. And I can just move this mask up and down however I please, and it works. Now, let's say you made a mistake and you selected the wrong mode. I selected subtract, and I probably should have selected add, or maybe I wanted to select add. Well, what I can do is I can come back to the gradient that I just applied, and you'll see a 3-line menu over to the right. If I click that 3-line menu, you'll notice at the very bottom, I have mode, and I have 3 options in here: add, subtract, and intersect. We'll talk about intersect in a second, but what I want to click on is add. So let's click add and watch what happens to my overlay. Now, if the effect that I was applying, I wanted to not only apply it to my model here, but I also wanted to apply it to the bottom of my image, because remember, red is showing the areas that are receiving the adjustment because I selected affected. Well, now the model in the bottom of my image is going to receive the adjustment that I apply. And of course, I can move this up higher. I can rotate this around. So maybe I want to put it at the top of the image and fade it in. So many opportunities that are available to us once we get our heads wrapped around how this is working. And I think that this is just phenomenal. I'm excited for it. All right. But those are some of the more simplistic methods of using this new masking capability. The logic that I am applying in this content here that I'm creating, or this video, this lesson that I'm teaching, you can apply to any of the other masks that are available, such as the Quick Mask AI. All right. Now, this works a little bit different, so I will select that. Let's just go ahead and remove the gradient mask. So in order to remove a mask, you'll hit the 3-line menu over the mask layer that you no longer want. All right. You can hit the 3-line menu and then hit remove, and it goes away. Now, if for whatever reason you made a mistake, you didn't mean to remove that, just hit Command or Control Z. It'll come back just like that. And then, of course, if you want to see what an adjustment looks like with and without the adjustment that you made, let me show you. We'll just make things brighter overall in those areas. Press the letter O. So you can see I have, let me just hit Z. You can see that I have the bottom of my image a little bit brighter. Well, what if I wanted to see if that's going to look good or not? What I can do is come over to the masking options here, and to the left of the gradient, which is selecting the bottom of the image, I could turn that off. And now I can see what it looks like without applying the adjustment in that area. Again, this is one of those flexibility and creative things that it allows us to stay in the workflow instead of having to worry about the technicality of doing things. So when we get our minds wrapped around how this masking works, I think we're going to be able to see a lot of capability in making selections in our images. So I can turn that back on and check it out. And now I have that, but I don't need this anymore. So I'm just going to hit remove. Now, let's say I wanted to select the car and apply the same adjustment that I'm applying to my main subject to the car. Well, the way that we can work is, again, come over to our mask layers, hit the plus icon, and then we'll come down to Quick Mask AI. And this one, again, I want to include the selection of the car. So I want to click on Add, right? Because I want to apply the same adjustments that I'm applying to my model to the car. So I'll click Add, and then this is going to activate the AI Quick Mask brush. This is the same brush that we have with Super Select AI or with the AI Quick Mask brushing. So this should be very familiar for many of us. And I can just click on the car, and now I'm adding it, right? Now you still have to come up here to the top and select if you want to paint or erase. By default, if you click Add, ON1 is going to select paint. 9 times out of 10, you don't need to change this, because if you click Add, you're going to want it to say paint. So you can almost forget that the options exist up here. Just come over to the right after you've selected everything that you want it to include in your mask or your selection, and hit the blue check mark. And then we'll see that we get a new layer once this creates. So we get a new layer, and the car is selected, and it has that mask applied to it. And then of course, if I turn off the subject mask, which is selecting our model, you'll notice that the car still retains that adjustment. This is really, really cool. And I'm excited for the possibilities that this offers to us inside of ON1 that we didn't have before. So just keep that in mind. The masking layers is going to be a extremely helpful tool once you get familiar with it. All right. Now, one of the things that I haven't touched on so far in this particular lesson is the target mask. Now, the target mask is the collective of all of your mask layers. So think of like if this was an addition problem, right? All of these layers, if I had 15 layers down here selecting 15 different areas, the target mask would be the sum of all of those 15 layers, or it would represent what that mask looks like with all 15 of those layers. All right. So if I turn this off, I'm going to turn off the mask over the entire image. The reason why you've seen the adjustment go over the entire image is because by default, when you turn off the layer mask, it paints white over your entire image. So if I press, and I guess if I press the letter O, that doesn't do anything for that, but that's essentially what happens. All right. I can't showcase that in the mask itself. However, if I turn this on and I press the letter O, you can see exactly where that mask is going, because the target mask is always going to show you what is selected. And then of course, if I invert this to non-affected, then I'm getting the cutout eventually, or essentially. So we'll go back to affected, and we are going to turn off that mask. Now, the next thing we'll cover is intersect. So what I'm going to do is hit the plus icon, and I want to actually, before we do that, let's just reset this entire mask. In order to reset an entire mask, what you'll do is come up here to the very top and hit the 3-line menu, and then you can hit reset. But what I'm actually going to do, just to showcase something a little bit more interesting, is I'm going to turn off the AI quick mask and the subject mask. And that's going to essentially look like we reset the mask, but I'm retaining those mask cutouts. And you'll see why here in a second when I show you this. So what I'm going to do is hit the plus icon, and I'm going to select a gradient, and I want to add to this mask. right? So we'll just go ahead and hit add, and look, it's applying a linear gradient. Well, we've worked enough with linear gradients today, so let's go ahead and grab ourselves a radial gradient. I'm going to select edges because for whatever reason, edges, why didn't it select? There we go. For whatever reason, edges protects the edges, right? So if I press the letter O, look at that. The red is inside of my oval. So that means the adjustment that I'm making is happening inside of the oval. I'm going to make this a little bit smaller so what I show you with intersect makes more sense. And I'm just going to put this like right over half of her face. Maybe I'll put it all the way over her face because it'll make sense. So I'm just going to cover her face. And the way intersect works is any mask that you set to intersect is only going to show up in the areas where the two masks overlay. All right. So, or intersect. I'm going to hit the plus icon and I'm going to use another radial adjustment, and we'll just hit add, and I'll change this over to edges again, and I'm going to make it smaller. And then for this one, I'm just going to rotate it so it's a little bit easier to see what's happening. I'm also going to remove the feather and make it more lengthy. All right. So it's a little bit easier to see. Now, I chose add. What I need to do is come over here to the 3-line menu, come down to mode, and I need to select intersect now. Well, it looks like, and yeah, I already have the plus exposure on there. It looks like nothing is happening. Well, the reason for that is neither of these masks are touching each other. But as soon as I drag this over, you'll notice, let me just turn off the mask overlay. As soon as I drag this over, look at how that is applying the adjustment in just the area where the two masks overlap with one another. All right. That's what intersect does. And this is, again, another very powerful tool for creating what's known as a compound mask. We've been working with compound mask in this entire lesson, but the intersect option really allows you to like fine tune where you want your mask to go. And there are some scenarios where the intersect mask mode is probably the better option out of the three, but I'm not going to cover that so much in this particular tutorial. What I want to do is just show you that it's available and how it works, and then get your creative ideas flowing on how you can use this in your own workflow, or maybe you won't even touch this tool, and that's perfectly fine. All right. Now, if I press the letter O, you can see everywhere that red is, that's where my adjustment is going to go. And you'll notice that as I pull this around, it's only going where those two masks actually overlay with one another. All right. So intersect mode, very, very powerful. It could be considered niche in some cases, but it's probably one of those things that as you need it, just know that it's there. All right. Now, I'm going to hit the letter O, and I'm going to change this from intersect back to add. So that way we see those two in there. And then of course, if I wanted to remove this particular gradient overlay from what was happening, I could use subtract, and it's now removing the main area, which is essentially giving me the same thing as what I was getting with intersect, but it is working a little bit different behind the scenes with the algorithm. But I'm going to go ahead and move this back over to add. Of course, if you have questions, drop them in the comment section below. But one of the better ways of getting your questions answered is to sign up for a training call with me. A link for that can be found in the description box below. Now, the reason I left this mask unreset is to show you the power of turning on and off the layers. So right now you can see what's happening with the model in in her face and background area there. If I turn this off and turn this off, I essentially get nothing, but I can combine these masks to make something that is very unique. And I've applied these masks later than those ones and things like that. So that's one of the reasons that I wanted to leave those masks leave those masks in place, because you may want to experiment with selecting different areas in your image to figure out what you actually like. And now we get that. But what's also really cool here, we'll just go ahead and turn on the selection of just the model, and I'll click on that subject selection mask and then hit the 3-line menu. There we go. Hit the 3-line menu and we'll enter the refine mask mode. Now, this mode, it enters you into a pop-up dialog box, and it's going to allow you to, let me just close this out real quick, hit the letter Z, and now I'll come back to the subject mask and do refine. I just wanted to get rid of those masking overlays. All right. So you'll notice that the refine mask tool, it comes with a few new options, right? With the main one being this shift edge option. And then down here at the bottom, we have the scale that's showing where 0 or the darkest value of a luminance or the window is. And then we have all the way up to the brightest pixel. This is not a clickable thing, at least not right now in the pre-release version, but it is one of those visual indicators. Think of it like a ruler where you can kind of hone this in wherever you need it to be, selecting the portions of the image that are important to you. All right. Most cases, it's going to stay all the way open, but there are some areas where maybe you only want to apply the mask to just the middle tones of luminosity values to the image. But the shift edge option is actually pretty cool. If I press the letter O, watch what happens to the edge, and it just diffuses. Now that's going like all the way over the image, not what we want, but the edge, it starts to grow here. All right. Which is cool. If I pull it to the left and I need to expand my pixels to the left, then you can shift edge. And the reason I point this out, and you could also remove pixels from your selection. The reason I point this out is because in the past, you would use the chisel tool, and sometimes that worked well, sometimes it didn't work well. This is just a simple way of doing essentially the exact same thing. And the chisel tool is still available. So if that's your cleanup tool of choice, you still have access to that in the refine mask options. It's just, this is the shift edge tool that really does go a long way for cleaning up your options, your mask. But you also get a feather for every single mask layer that you create. So if I wanted to feather this subject mask like crazy, I can do that. And if I come up here to the mask that we created for the car, you'll notice that when I hit the refine mask option for just that layer, the feather is set back to 0. So lots of capability available to us there. I am pretty confident that I did not cover every single new thing in the masking, just because there's a lot of stuff. But the things that I did cover, those are the things that are going to help you get your images edited. At least I believe so. And I will be more than happy to answer any questions about it. So leave those in the comment section below if you got them. Don't forget, if you want to learn how to use ON1 Photo RAW, consider signing up for a trading call. The link for that is found in the description box below. If you want to pre-order ON1 Photo RAW, consider using the coupon code FREEWILL10. It is an affiliate coupon, which means I make a small commission, but you still get to save money. So it's a win-win for both of us. Until next time, I want you to stay inspired and keep creating. Peace.